Today we're going to talk about sweat management a little bit. Even back to my snowboard video last week, I was talking about how that's probably the thing that I still struggle with the most, at least when I'm doing sports, when I'm doing snowboarding and things like that, or in the summer when it's just hot and you're outside all day, doing those things. Like sweat is the thing that creates the most barriers for me using my prosthetics still, I would say, other than, when sores happen and blisters and those types of things. But that's a different kind of issue, I feel like, because sweat often can create those issues as well. It just creates more friction, rubbing, everything else. But there are quite a few things out there that can help you manage sweat or attempt to manage sweat. And it really is about talking to your professionals, talking to your doctor, talking to your prosthetist, and figuring out what is right for you and trying those things. But some options that I've tried way back in the beginning, when sweat was like a major issue for me, I would go to physical therapy. And I remember getting home from physical therapy and literally dumping my socket out, like it just being full of sweat and just sloshing around in there is no fun. It's one of the most uncomfortable, just cringe feelings I've ever had in my life, and that it sucks. And so I remember going to my doctor and them prescribing me antiperspirant called Hypercare. And so that was something that I would put on at night and then wash it off in the morning. And after using it for about a week to 2 weeks every day, it worked pretty well. And then I think I cut down to like maybe using it like 3 times a week and then cut down to even using it once a week. And like that helped me manage my sweat for a good amount of time. As time went on, it's just kind of a roller coaster of things, as all all aspects of being an amputee are. But I remember I eventually tried a Botox study. So the University of Utah was doing a study on Botox injections in your limb for sweat management, and so I gave that a go. And it was, I think we did like 100 and something injections, which wasn't the most fun. It did work for a while. I think it worked for like 10-ish weeks. I also noticed that my limb was like really tight, really uncomfortable at some times, but then also that like sometimes my phantom pain was a little bit more during that time. And the reason why I didn't do it again is because exactly that, like you have to do it every 12 weeks, something like that, for it to continue to be in there and clog your pores, I guess. And so that was like a fun experiment to try, and it definitely like made a difference for a couple weeks during the summer, which was really nice. Back when I was coaching football, that was a big problem. It was kind of way too much work, and it wasn't really like justifiable in my head. Like I got good results from the hypercare, and so I was like, yeah, okay, like that was good, but it wasn't like the end all be all for me. There's also over-the-counter antiperspirant that is called Drysol that you can get anywhere, Walgreens, CVS, all of the places. And like I do know quite a few people that works really well. There's also like this is actually a silicone lotion, but Alps has antiperspirant spray as well, and that I've used a few times, and that works relatively well. And so that, I think you can get that on the amputee store, amputeestore.com. I think that that's available to buy, and so you could just buy that, and that works, like I said, relatively well. But then there's other options too, like I was talking about, this liner, this Smart Temp liner that I'm gonna try snowboarding this year. Like really, the Smart Temp should just stay cooler for longer. I've talked to some guys that they put theirs in the fridge because then it just stays at that like temperature the whole time that they're wearing it. And so that's really nice. Excited to see how that works. There's also some liners out there that have like holes in them that are perforated so that your sweat theoretically leaks through there and then is not like interacting with your skin and that barrier between your skin and the socket. But part of the problem with that, I feel like, is that's great if the sweat gets out of the liner, but it's still trapped in the socket. And that's like part of the problem, like moisture in there is just an issue. And so there is one new system that Oster has called the Aero socket, which I'm hoping to try sometime. It looks really nice. The issue with it is cost because the liner is 3D printed. So the liner is like very specific and very unique. And I really don't know enough about it. Like go to Oster's website and look at it, and like just the videos and marketing that they have on it. It's like, wow, that looks pretty cool. Looks like there could be some stuff there that is viable. And so they have a very unique 3D printed liner, and that is what is unique about it, is the liner is 3D printed and it has multiple layers, and so it's supposed to be great at wicking sweat out from there. But then also the socket has vents in it, and so you're wicking the moisture out of the liner, but you're also wicking the moisture out of the socket. And so that's obviously like way more on track with kind of what I've been thinking for a long time. I've even had the idea of like, what if we could hook a vacuum pump up to the outside of my socket and then suck the air out, suck the water out, suck the sweat out through that vacuum, suck all that moisture out through the vacuum that is maybe a little bit higher up on the socket, and get that moisture out without having to take it off. Because I'll legitimately be snowboarding and maybe it's the day the sun was out, and so I walked to the lift and got on, and then I have to go down, ride down a little way to a spot in the trees and take my leg off, dry it off, and then put it all back on in the snow. Or maybe it's just I was riding hard and got started sweating a little bit more and have to do the same thing. And so to eliminate that, to not have to take my socket off and get that moisture out, to just wick that moisture out on its own, is really like what I'm looking for, especially when I'm doing kind of those extracurricular things. Because I really, now 12 years after my amputation, I don't really have as big of an issue with sweat on a day-to-day basis. Like my limb has leveled out in some manageable ways. That there's every now and again it'll get a little bit sweaty on like a hot day or whatever it is, but on like an average normal day, I'm just doing average normal things. It really isn't that big of an issue for me. But once I go snowboard, really snowboarding is where it is like the biggest issue for me now, and so trying to figure out something that works for that is great. But like I said in the beginning, it was like the worst problem for me, and it makes using your prosthetic harder. It makes, as soon as you have sweat in there, you're, especially as an AK and BK, you're sloshing around, you have less control, and it's just kind of a scary feeling. And so, if you are someone that is dealing with that, I've had a lot of people that are new, and they don't realize like, hey, I need to take my leg off probably 3 or 4 times a day at minimum, whether that's to dry sweat or just to get things realigned. Like sometimes, especially when you're going through that volume fluctuation quite a bit, you may put things on in the morning and everything is great and feeling good, but then like by lunchtime, you really probably need to readjust because you're maybe sliding around in there. Maybe you're pivoting up and down because you didn't get all the way in and your sleeve is stopping you from doing that, those types of things. Also sweat, like take it off, and if you feel moisture in there, take it off and dry it off. Like if I'm sweating, I take my leg off and dry it off as much as possible, because it's just going to create unhealthy issues with your skin, and it's just not the most comfortable thing. You don't have that control like I was talking about. So that's a little breakdown on sweat management. Next week, I think we'll get into maybe a knee or two. So looking forward to that. Other than that, we'll see you next time.